Good afternoon. It's Thursday, February 25th, and welcome everyone to the Harlan Municipal Board Meeting. First, we'd like to call the meeting to order and have the approval of the agenda and the conflict of interest.
If I could interject one correction to the agenda. On item number 6, the Telview support, we attached 2 invoices to that for reference. It's in support of the Telview equipment that was approved back in December. The $1368.75 is one of the 2 invoices. The second invoice is $618.75. So the total for both should be $1,987.50.
Okay.
Move to approve the agenda subject to the change to item number 6.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Connie, aye.
Cyber aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next we'll have approval of the consent agenda for all items under that would be enacted in one motion. The minutes of the February 11th electronic board meeting, the abstract of claims number 1183 in the amount of $761,738.27, and the upcoming board meetings of March 11th, which would be electronic, and the 25th, which would be the in-person or Zoom meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Connie, aye.
Cyber aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, moving forward. Next on the agenda would be the agreement for the engineering services risk and resolution of the assessment, which is due June 30th, and emergency response plan, which would be due December 20th of 21. And that is being submitted by McClure in the amount of $12,000, and this would be a budget amendment.
Yes, we had, excuse me, we have been trying to limit the work, non-budgeted work in the water department, but in reviewing some of the EPA and IDNR requirements on risk assessment, this engineering service risk assessment is due June 30th. So we're going to need to go ahead and move forward with at least that portion of McClure's proposal. The emergency response plan is due December 20th, but both are included in the full amount of $12,000. But we do need to go ahead and do the initial risk assessment because it's due June 30th. This is on the water treatment plant. Risk assessment of the water treatment plant. So.
This is work that had to go out. We did not have the ability to do it in-house.
No, we didn't have it.
I move to approve the agreement for McClure for $12,000 for the risk assessment.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Connie, aye.
Cyber aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next would be the consortia proposal for the cash flow update, approximate cost of $26.25 to $31.50 telecom petition. It is also a budget amendment for the telecom petition.
Yes, as the board may recall, last fall we had consortia do a base rate study for the telecom utility, doing some cash flow projections and what we would need to set our rates at going forward. Unfortunately, with the petition that's been filed, we have to do a 5-year projection. And so this is so consortia can revise their original 3-year into a 5-year projection. So it's an additional cost of, it's an hourly rate, and it'll come between $26.25 and $31.50 to respond to the petition. So.
I move to approve the proposal for the update on cash flow.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Terrell, aye.
Connie, aye.
Cyber aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next will be that Teleview support and maintenance contract that we were initially changing for the 3 years, and that would be for the total of $1987.50.
Yes. And this is in support, this is support and maintenance. It goes along with the media equipment that was approved for our local channels at last December's board meeting. So
So this is a total of $1987 for 3 years, so it's about $625 a year or something like that.
Yes, yes.
I just forgot to type that on the agenda item. Both amounts were included in the packet.
Yeah. Both invoices were in the package.
Okay.
Yeah, it's two units, the Hypercaster's 1,368.75, and the InfoViews is 618 for 3 year.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Caroline?
Connie, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next would be,
Do you want me to announce when more people dial in or just keep track of it?
is there a substantial number?
No, just one more. Lauren is all we have.
Okay. Then we're probably okay unless somebody's. Estimate for the replacing of the failed 69 kV instrument at the Avoca sub in the amount of $56,932. This would be a budget amendment as well.
Yes, this is in response to a proposal from Mid-America Energy. This has to do with the metering down in the Avoca substation where we receive our power through our 69 kV transmission line. The equipment that was installed back in the 80s when the line was built is starting to fail at the metering point. What they call current transformers and potential transformers. They're basically like donuts that the cable goes, or the cabling goes through to work into the metering. And both are starting to become unstable, and so they're recommending those to be replaced at $56,932. We did route this to the electric committee, and in response to some of their concerns, we looked at options. We can't do the work ourselves. We're just not trained or physically able to do that kind of work on the 69 kV metering. And the MEC has the crews and the equipment to do the work themselves. The concern with going out to bids is if we bring, number one, we're not sure who can do it because we have a very limited number of contractors. We use Power Engineering for line construction, and then we have a company that comes in to do some new construction in our subs. But maintaining this type of metering is beyond the capability. We have a metering service company that comes in and tests our meters on occasion, but it's beyond his capability as well. And the concern with bringing in, trying to find an outside contractor and bring them in is then we're talking about travel, meals, lodging, everything else associated with bringing outside contractors in. So our recommendation is to go with the Mid-America proposal for $56,932. And just so the board is aware, I just received another email from Mid-America, and the third potential transformer, they call it a CVT, is now showing signs of failure. But what we intend to do with that is we'll hold off until the fiscal year this fall. They think the work may end up being delayed anyway, just because of everything else going on in the market. So if the work gets delayed, like say into the third calendar quarter, then we'll just pay that remaining $19,000 that they're talking about for the third piece out of the next fiscal year budget. But for right now, we wanted to go ahead and get approval so that they can at least get the materials ordered that they don't already have on hand. But it is a critical part of our electrical supply. And like I said, the original equipment, 80 installed in the 80s, so it's like end of life on it.
So is there a certain dollar amount that we have to send out for bids if it's over a certain dollar amount?
The criteria is that most of your bidding actually is directed toward construction, new construction. So there is quite a bit of latitude when we get into spatial projects and vehicles and that type of thing. We theoretically don't even have to bid on our vehicles and equipment. We can just choose a vendor and buy it. But we've historically tried to bid wherever possible. But by the time the only way we can bid anything is to go through the whole process of engineering design and engineering drawings and then putting everything out for a formal bid. So it adds all that extra engineering cost and everything related to it if we go out for formal bids on anything. But I think generally speaking, we've looked at a $60,000 to $65,000 threshold internally as kind of a guideline for us on how we do things.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the replacement of the 69 kV equipment.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Carol, I.
Connie, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next will be the annual membership assessment invoice in the amount of $6,000 for SPP for the 2021.
Yes, this is annual, and we're just bringing it to the board's attention because of the dollar amount of $6,000. But it's an annual assessment for membership.
Move to approve.
Second?
Who was that, David?
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Carol, I.
Connie, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Reese, aye.
Okay, next we have agreement for the MCR to assist with the attachment H, which determines HMU's annual transmission revenue requirements in the Southwest Power Pool, and authorize Ken Weber to sign.
This is our annual project with SPP where we file our attachment H to recover costs through our transmission ownership arrangements with SPP. And the estimated cost for this is $30,000 to $35,000. And generally what we do is we do the actual required annual meeting in conjunction with the May board meeting.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Terry, aye.
Carol, I.
Connie, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Reese, aye.
Just for the board's attention, that generally that will generate about $250,000 in annual revenue going this route for the transmission ownership attachment H.
Temporary transfer of funds from CDs to the operating gas fund if needed.
Okay, as everyone is well aware, we haven't put any kind of press announcements out to the media yet, mainly because I wanted to talk to the board first, just to make sure everyone was fully aware of what's going on in the marketplace. Due to the extreme weather last week, is it last week already? I guess it started on a Friday and went through a Tuesday into the Wednesday of the following week. So roughly a 5 to 6 day period that was the critical period for us on weather. And we received, well, let me set the stage. Up until that time, we were paying either side of $3 a decatherm for natural gas. And we were well within our normal daily bid and tag and everything else on the electric side. And when the extreme weather hit, two things happened. Number one, from the standpoint of gas supply, suddenly there was a huge constraint on gas supply due to the cold weather. Most of the gas that comes into the northern natural gas system comes out of the Permian Basin in West Texas, and then up through Oklahoma and southern Kansas. They also bring in some of the gas from there. But that's basically the gas supply that feeds the northern natural gas pipeline. And the problem they ran into with the extreme weather was that the wellheads were freezing up. So in other words, there was a constriction on how much gas was entering the supply end of the pipeline. So gas was becoming a premium at that point. And then to add to that, with the extreme weather, ERCOT within Texas and SPP in the southern tier of their frame, Kansas, Missouri, or not Missouri, but Kansas and Oklahoma, those areas, due to the weather again freeze up, they were suffering extreme demands for electricity. And what happened was that generation just couldn't pick up. Some of the wind generation was froze up. It had never been winterized, so it wasn't producing. And wind historically had been producing about 30% of the ERCOT or Texas supply of energy. So automatically they were down about 30%. They were having trouble with coal. A lot of the coal was iced in, so they were having trouble getting the coal actually into the generators. And on gas, they were suffering the same issue with gas supply for the gas turbine. So it was a number of things compounding on both the electric and gas side in the southern tier of areas, like I said, Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And the net result was that SPP had to go into a stage of curtailment. And our neighbor to the north, Denison, who's supplied by NIPCO, they get WAPA energy from NIPCO, directly from NIPCO, whereas we take our WAPA supply through SPP. Denison was curtailed for about 2.5 hours. They had no advance notice, just bing, the lights were out. OPPD, as I'm sure you're aware, they were rolling blackouts. And so what happened as SPP was having trouble bringing generation on, MISO was trying to generate more and then export it to SPP. Well, there was problems with constraint in Avoca and Council Bluffs, mainly because of MISO trying to push power into SPP, which caused some constraint issues and concerns along some of the Mid-America lines. The net result of all of that is that electricity supplied out of the SPP market skyrocketed. Our wholesale price is roughly $27 to $34 a megawatt hour on a monthly basis. And in some cases, megawatt hour prices exceeded $1,000 a megawatt hour in the SPP marketplace. Concurrently, in northern natural gas, where we had been paying roughly $3 a decatherm for gas, with the limited supply and the increased demand, because what was happening was these operators who could get their gas turbines started needed gas supply to feed electricity to SPP. And in some cases, they were bidding gas up to as much as $800 to $1,000 a decatherm to get that, because they were contractually obligated to generate for SPP. So you just had all these things playing together, and as a result, we took a hit on both electricity and natural gas. A little bit of background. What we generate out of Louisa is sold into the MISO market. That's the Mid-America Independent System Operators, MISO. And then we buy back energy from MISO. And then what we take from our contract arrangement with WAPA, we take delivery of that through SPP. And what happens is whatever we do on a daily basis, load and tag contractually on our power supply, any excess over that excess demand, then we go into the market, the daily market for any remaining electricity we need. As do all the other municipals and power distribution companies, electric distribution companies that are tied into either one of those grids. Everyone deals in this daily market for any excess that they need on a daily basis. On the gas side, we contract 70% of our normal average usage on a long-term contract through BP North America, British Petroleum, and they're basically our broker through which we buy our gas. And that 70% covers our, like I said, normalized average usage. And then any demand above and beyond that, we go to the what's called the spot gas daily market on the gas side. And so our prices through that period of time averaged, they went from $3 a decatherm roughly to, what was the top, around 281?
241, or excuse me, 231.67.
231 was the top price, so we were able to get our gas locked in as it started to go up. While, like I said, there were others in the marketplace that got in a little bit later than us, paid as much as $800 to $1,000 or more per decatherm for gas to meet that demand. And you know, we can't just cut off our border station to limit our expense. If we have customers demanding gas for heating their homes or their business or whatever, we have to supply it. So if we have a gap between our contract and demand, we have to buy it on the daily spot basis. So the net result is, through that period of approximately 5 to 6 days, the hit on the electric side is roughly $100,000, about $20,000 from MISO for constrained, what they call congestion, and roughly $80,000 to $90,000 in SPP. That's our preliminary estimate on the electric, based on some of the settlement information that we've been receiving just in the last 24 hours. On the gas side, we won't actually receive our gas bill until in March, but based on our calculations and the worksheets, the hit on the gas side is roughly $1.9 million. And that's the portion that's in the spot market. And we've, there's all kinds of horror stories out there. I'll talk at the utility level. There are horror stories out there where a lot of utilities have spent anywhere from 3 to 5 years typical dollars to buy that period of time for gas, what they would normally spend in a 3 to 5 year time frame. So there are utilities out there that are in worse shape than what we got hit. Now, a couple of things about that. We can't just stop our operation. We have to continue to read meters, we have to continue to generate bills, and we have to continue to adjust for the wholesale cost of energy as we go forward. So we have to move forward based on the information we have at the time those bills are generated and those expenses have to be paid, because we still have to pay our wholesale bills as well. So anyway, it has caused some extreme impact to our customers. We appreciate that. The reason we haven't done any press release yet is because I wanted to present the information to the board first and have some discussion about it. But the intention is that we will have a formal press release for the media tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, as soon as I finish drafting it up, based on our discussion today. Now, as far as customers are concerned, what happened for the last, I don't know how long, how many years, the purchase gas adjustment?
Well, since 2010, we've been receiving a credit on our
Yeah.
gas purchase adjustment
Right.
because our spot gas has been a little lower than our
Contract.
firm gas that we've purchased.
Yeah.
And that credit, rolls back to the customer, every bill that they get. In this case, it's gonna be $1.65 right now more than CCF, so on that.
So the
In those
big
5
jump, yeah, but the big jump, because besides the customers who use more gas to heat their homes, the big jump in the billing is in that purchase gas adjustment calculation. And unfortunately, the way that the systems work, it's all into one bill. So that gets recalculated on a weekly basis. And so, it will, unless we get another cold spell, of course, it will go back more to what it's been in the past. But the way our billing system's set up, the way the PGA is calculated and everything else, it's a process that's kind of fixed in time as far as how we have to go through it. And, we are aware that it's causing hardship for our customers. We are willing to work with our customers as their situation dictates. But, there are other things that, like I said, we still have bills to pay, and we have to cover some of those costs. Now, from the utility standpoint, we're fortunate that the Board of Trustees has had the strategic foresight to put away operating reserves. So, back to the item on the agenda. We do have operating reserves sufficient to cover this expense, but they're in CDs. And so what we're looking to the board for, we can move certain monies around between accounts, but when it comes to cash them out of CD or something like that, we would rather have the board take action to allow us to do that type of thing, rather than just myself and the chair do it. So basically what this is requesting is that we have the approval to cash out those 2 CDs that are in our operating reserves right now for such a purpose as this, and then to whatever other funds are required out of our current savings accounts to be able to pay this BP bill. And the reason we're bringing it to you now is because it'll be due the day of our next board meeting. So even though we'll get the final statement sometime in March to know exactly what the dollars amount are, unless we call a special meeting, we won't have time to take action to move the funds prior to the next meeting. So that's why we're requesting board action now. So what questions do we have about all that?
My first question would be the bill that I got today
Yep.
that has this dramatic increase. Is this the bill or will it be there again next month?
The GPA, or PGA purchase gas adjustment will be recalculated again in,
Today it got recalculated, it was $1.65, $1.65 and it'll be $1.67 is what I've recalculated it at right now.
for the next billing
And
period.
then the price of natural gas has came back down, so it should stay right in that area through this rolling 5-week period.
It'll stay on there for any bills that go out for the next 5 weeks. So March 19th will be the last billing cycle that this amount shows on, if that answers your question.
Well, I guess the question was, you know, we've never really seen anything like this. It's unprecedented in my time. Is this, so I'm expecting a significantly higher bill next month as well?
It should be significantly higher, I mean, because.
If you get a bill before March 19th.
Yeah, if you get a bill before March 19th, it'll be still on that rolling 5-week period, correct, Jenny? Yes.
So I'm like David, I got my bill today. I'm sure a lot of other people did too. So today's February 25th, they read my meter on the 18th. So will I guess my same question is, will my bill that I get, say, March 25th, will it be more reflective of normal, or will we still have this 5-week rolling average included?
This 5-week rolling average will go on and through bills, the last bills of March 19th through that next week will still have this adjustment on there. The adjustment will change every week, but it also depends on everybody's usage when their meter is read is different within each cycle. So your bill might have been, your meter, what day did you say it was read
It
on?
was read on the 18th.
The 18th, where David's meter might have been read on the 13th. So his might be split between 2 bills, whereas yours might show up all on one. But this adjustment will show up for the next 5 weeks, any bills that are mailed out for the next 5 weeks. And then that week falls off. That $1.5 million week falls off, and they'll go back to normal.
So the rates will probably still be somewhat the same. It'll just be the usage should not be as great because of the temperatures.
Right. And so if the usage goes down, then of course the PGA associated with it, you know, fewer CCFs, so it's calculated on fewer numbers. That's the way our process is set up right now, from a billing and a pass-through standpoint. Now, to continue the discussion, our associations, American Public Gas, American Public Power, Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities are all seeking some type of state or federal relief for this extraordinary situation. Because like I said, it's not just us, it's throughout basically the whole Midwest, and even other parts of the country that have had to deal with gas sourced out of Texas or that are impacted by the SPP footprint. So it's a larger area than just us that are being impacted. Now, what's being proposed right now by these associations that we're with, the proposal that went to the president is to put a cap on the price of gas for municipals and other agencies. They haven't told us what that cap number would be, but it would be, my guess is it would be closer to $10 or $20 than to $200. And then the relief would be the portion above that. Now, if such things are obtained and if relief is, then we would end up, I don't know what the right word, I don't want to use rebate, but refunded in some way back to customers, either in the form of bill credits or in the form of a payment. You know, somehow those funds would be refunded back to customers.
I mean, wasn't part of this price gouging, or whatever you want to call it, exacerbated by the governor of Texas
Yes.
saying there will be no more exporting of any
Yep.
energy?
There were a lot of things that exacerbated the situation, yes. Yep. And there is some talk about it being artificially manipulated for profit. A similar situation occurred a number of years ago when there was a huge demand in California. And the constraint to the California market at that time was a transmission system coming off from Nevada and Arizona. And Enron made billions of dollars of profit, and it was determined that they were manipulating the price by limiting how much transmission was being used. So, I mean, there is that kind of speculation in this situation as well. There'll have to be investigations, it'll take time. But ultimately, if there is relief, then that will be passed directly back to all of our customers in some form. So it's an occurrence that no one has seen for, at least in this market, not that I'm aware of, that's ever occurred before. So.
Any more questions? Okay,
So are we at liberty to, tell our ratepayers what their options may be? Do we want to talk about any of that?
Well, a couple of the items, I mean, I'll just be frank. If a customer is struggling and, they need time to make the payments, if they're on a fixed income, for example, or something along that line, we'll work with the customers as much as we can. There's also the option we could consider as far as waiving any kind of penalties or fees if a payment term is extended for that type of reason. We just don't have a guidebook right now to be able to do any of that. We're willing to consider it, we're willing to talk about it, but quite frankly, we don't even know how to implement that type of a process. Anything we do from the standpoint of credits and that type of thing would more or less involve a lot of manual manipulation of the billing system, that type of thing. But if a customer's in a situation where they need some help, we'll work with them. I mean, we have to. We don't want to shut anybody off any more than they want to pay the high bill, but, we do have to pay our bills as well.
And the big thing is communication.
Yes, yes. And like I said, the only reason we haven't put anything out yet to the press is because I wanted to talk to the board and make sure at least the board was understanding of everything that's going on before we put anything out to the media. So.
Yeah, I think we should put out though that if somebody feels they're gonna have trouble paying this bill, just contact us,
Yep.
and we don't know how we'll arrange it, but, like Terry said, communicate with us, let us know. Don't just ignore the bill and say, I can't pay it, so, but contact us and we can start working on something.
People that are on the budget billing won't be as impacted as much because their bill is normally calculated over a period of time for even payments.
But next year's budget bill will.
But next year's budget bill, but on the other hand, if we receive that there's more flexibility, spreading it out over a 12-month period that way as well within the budget billing system. And that also gets it out to the point where maybe we'll have some understanding if we're going to see any relief or anything showing up, so we can take that into consideration as well. So the biggest impact are the people that pay their bills monthly, and to those customers that have like the electronic automatic payment, electric funds transfer automatic. So those are the two areas where customers may need some type of consideration, and that's what customer service is.
What did I see or read someplace? Somebody had their utility bill electronically taken out of their bank account, and it was like $17,000.
Yeah, that's the story out of Texas, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, understand, Texas is the only state, number one, they're isolated from the transmission systems of the rest of the country. They have what they call ERCOT. And then they also are the only openly free market retail utility system. You go to Texas, if you want to get the electricity turned on, you've got a dozen different people providing electricity at the retail level. And so you either have to know somebody who knows what's going on, or you have to spend some time researching what's going on. But to give you an idea, typical electric rates, whereas ours are, say, 8 or 9 cents up here for Residential, in Texas, you're gonna probably be paying 14 to 16 cents for residential, retail. It's it's an interesting market, and they thought that this free market on utilities would drive the cost down, but it's driven the cost up. So,
All right. So do we have a motion for the temporary transfer of funds if needed?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Was that Terry?
Yep.
Terry, aye.
Caroline,
Connie, aye.
Cyber die.
Reese, aye.
All right. Thank you, Ken, for all that explanation. Next on the agenda will be the COVID-19 policy updates. No action is required, and they're all items that have been effective through March 31st for '21. And nothing's changed on these, correct?
No, nothing's changed, and we still are very fortunate. We haven't had a lot of issues with COVID within our staff or anything else. So we'll see what comes up the next month. Vaccines are coming out. We're in Tier 1C.
Okay, and they're still working on Tier 1B, right?
Yep. So we're in the next tier. So.
Any idea of when they're looking at?
Not really. I did see the governor announce today that J&J is supposed to make 26,000 doses available next week, so apparently that's due to be approved. That's a single shot, so that'll help some. And then, the federal level, they're promising that they're going to continue to ramp up delivery of vaccine, although we haven't seen it at the local levels yet. But if we can get everyone vaccinated sometime between now and July, or whenever we get our staff vaccinated, or whenever they think herd immunity is, because that continues to change as well, then we'll be able to kind of loosen up a little bit more about the front office, public access, and staff work inside premises and all the rest of it. So.
And if I understood correctly, I did talk to public health before this meeting about we would be on the list. Is that even though we're 1C, they're on 1B, but there's like 5 stages within 1B. So they still had quite a while to get through 1B, and we wouldn't be on the list in March like we had originally thought.
Any other comments with that? All right, next would just be discussion items. First, the McClure invoices totaling pressure filter repairs for number 2, $850. The water system services agreement for $568. Water system expert witness for $832.50. The raw water system evaluation of $4,010. Do we need to go through each one for
No, not
discussion?
really. The pressure filter number 2, that's just finishing up their part on that filter, which, by the way, is still running clear. So we still are of the opinion that that has solved their problem. They will be checking it again. Did they check
Tomorrow.
it? Tomorrow, yeah. They'll be checking it again tomorrow. And if it's still clear tomorrow, then our opinion is it was a success. And we did find a line. I had sent out the board some information on the fact that once we get all these pressure filters remediated, that we would still need to replace the membranes in the RO units. And we did send the guys, where did they went?
I think Atkinson, it was called.
Atkinson, okay.
Yeah.
They went to Atkinson today, and they obtained, I had the number written down, if I can find it. 42, okay. We have a total of 216 membranes in the 2 RO units, and they were able to obtain 42 slightly used membranes from this other operator of an RO unit. They found out that they had just bought membranes, and they found out that they weren't the type they needed for a certain type of chemical that they use, and so they had to replace them. And so we said, well, don't throw them away, we'll take them. So we just had to go pick them up. So we've got 42 of the 216 that we'll need, but it's not a lot, but it's a little. Every little bit helps on the water department.
They're, you know, they're changing them with the hard packed ones we have in our
Yeah,
systems.
yeah. We haven't talked about it a lot, but what happened with all the media, sand and anthracite and everything else that was going through, the membranes are basically hard packed and clogged in our RO units, so that's why we'll eventually have to replace them, so. The only other thing is on that expert witness part, of course, that's in regard to our litigation on the water plant, so.
Next would be the water report and the declining water production.
Okay, raw water. McClure has provided us with a preliminary draft report on the raw water, basically of our well fields, production out of the well fields. And what they are telling us is that our current production is roughly 60% of what our demand and any kind of reserve should be. So we are producing less water than what we use on a regular basis and less water than what we really need for fire protection and a reserve. There's two areas of concern. It's their opinion that considering that our last, well, let's see, the oldest well goes back to what, 47 or 50s? What was it? The 40s or 50s? Or maybe even before that. So we've got really old wells. The newest ones are 1989. And it's the opinion of the engineer that part of the problem on supply is that the older steel pipe and some of the old cast iron, not really cast iron, I'm trying to think of there's another word they use for it. But anyway, some of the old pipe is corroded to the extent that it may be anywhere from 30 to 60% constricted. In other words, instead of a 6-inch pipe, you're trying to push water through a 3 or 3.5 inch opening. So they are of the opinion that some of our constraints on production is the pipe. The pipe. That's why our pumps are running all the time trying to pump water through a smaller hole. So that's part of their concern. The other concern we have going on right now is that we are encountering a declining water table. Some of that is because of the drought from last year continuing. Some of that is the fact that with the deep freeze we've had this year, deep frost, it's limited any kind of infiltration back into the aquifer. So we're at a point now to where unless conditions change this spring and we can see some replenishment in that aquifer, that we may have to enter some type of conservation program this year on our water supply. And you know, because we have to maintain a minimum for fire suppression, if nothing else. But the proposals from the report are that they believe the long-term fix is to replace all of the pipe in the well field and to drill 4 new wells to bring us back up to the production levels that we really should for usage and fire demand and for a bit of a reserve. So that's the gist of it, and I just wanted to make the board aware of it. We're still studying it, still reviewing it. We need total dollar cost, if we did everything they're proposing, is in the $4 million range, which means that we would have to figure out how we could finance a bond to do that. Because we have essentially depleted our operating reserves in the water funds because of all the money we spent, nearly $1 million on the water plant remediation. So that's one of the concerns that we have. So we would need to prioritize what we think, well, first of all, determine what we think is the best option to increase production, at least incrementally. And then second, long-term, how we want to do the expansion that we believe is necessary in the well field. And that does include capping and abandoning the wells that no longer produce or where the casing is irrecoverable, or anything else that, restricts or limits that well production, and as well as the development of potential new wells. But there'll be more to follow. I just kind of make the board aware of what's going on there on the water utility and what some of the preliminary results are, but we will be monitoring production. We will be monitoring the aquifer through the spring to see what kind of condition we're going to be in come May and June. So, any questions on that preliminary? Did I forward everyone a copy of that report? Okay, all right. And we'll be working with McClure to get from draft to a final report that we can put out there for any kind of public information.
So next would be the electric, SPP electric.
We already kind of
So
talked
we-
about
yeah.
that, yeah.
And-
We talked about both
Yes.
C and E.
C, D, and E.
C, D,
Well,
and E.
D is another issue.
Oh,
Okay, so we need to talk
Yeah,
about
we
D.
do need to talk about D. I had hoped to have a chance to route this power management services proposal to the committee ahead of the board meeting so we could take action this month, but we just had too many intervening issues that arose. Basically what this is all about, as you may recall, we talked about our engineering, PS Analytics. Marlon Verbus is retiring, and he wants to set a date tentatively May of this year to retire. So to replace what he does, or to fill in the gap of what he did, we solicited 2 proposals on what we call our power management services. Basically, that's the marketing services, helping us do our annual, monthly, and weekly load estimations on the electric side, as well as respond to all the modeling and all the information WAPA, SPP, and MISO require from an engineering standpoint. And so what we did was solicit proposals from Tenaska, who currently provides our services in SPP, and from NextEra, who is a large, multifaceted engineering firm. They're based out of Florida, Florida Power and Light, but they're also into renewable energy. They own a lot of generation. They own a lot of wind farms across the country. They're a very large organization, and they also do provide this type of service. And so basically what we did was solicited a proposal from NextEra and Tenaska. And like I said, unfortunately, with everything else going on with these in the electric and gas markets, we didn't get a chance to fully discuss it with the electric committee, but we intend to the point to where we could potentially take action at the March meeting, so that we at least have another 60 days or so to transition between Marlon, before Marlon retires. So effectively, what we asked them to do, we currently, Mid-America offers a marketing service in the MISO market. Tenaska offers a marketing service in SPP, and then PS Analytics does the engineering part of it, all the calculations, all the projections, all the modeling on load. And so this proposal is for one entity to provide all 3 of those services. So that's kind of what the basis of all this is. So anyway, so that'll be, we'll take it, like I said, we didn't get a chance to review it like I wanted to for this meeting, so we'll be visiting with the committee about it, and we'll bring it back at the March meeting for potential action. Any questions on that? Okay.
Next would be then the truck bids.
Okay, the truck bids. What we have is one of our vehicles in the meter shop that we need to replace. It's one of those ones you end up nickel and diming you to death and all the things that go along with that. But what we're running into, and what I wanted to visit with the board about, is that nobody right now has the new trucks we need. We've reached out to local dealers, and nobody's got the truck that we would like. Is it comparable to a 350 or a 450?
350 is what we were
350.
after.
Okay. So it's that 1-ton type of work utility truck that we want. And we even reached out to the people that have the truck beds, because we do need to replace the truck bed as well, utility bed. And, you know, it just, nobody has this kind of vehicle available right now. Now, kind of on the same line as the bidding, you know, when do we bid on stuff? Again, it's kind of been hit and miss on the vehicles. We've, you know, in prior cases, we've sent requests to debtors in Atlantic. Excuse me. We've sent requests to Denison. We've sent requests to Woodhouse. Generally speaking, our local dealer has always, you know, been able to step up and meet whatever the competitive price was. And the leaning, we do have a policy for local purchase. You know, the board made a commitment to purchase locally wherever possible, as long as it was on, you know, things were reasonably competitive. So what I'm asking the board, in light of this difficulty even finding vehicles at this point, if the board has any objections to just going ahead and trying to enter a best price, get a best price proposal from Keist, basically. They're here, they're local, they've always been competitive. If we have service issues, they're always very responsive. And we're looking at what, 50, probably 55 to 60 is the estimate we put in.
Yeah, we got two estimates on the 21s from them, hoping that we could get a hold of one, but they ceased all production on vehicles being made. The only thing they were doing was filling all the orders that had been throughout the year. We had a bid on the Ford of, if I don't have my paper with me, but it was $54,000, and then the Chevy was like $56,000. But now they tell us that we gotta wait for the 2022s to come out and just wait for that line to show up, because they just can't get a hold of 2021.
But we don't have any, nobody's got them
The
available.
computer chip shortage.
Yeah, that's what we think it's amounted to, is a computer chip shortage.
And Keith can't get one out of Omaha or any place?
No.
No.
No, they've checked the Midwest region looking for, on the dealer side, looking for the trucks, and they can't find them, so.
And we want to get it from the dealer because they've got utility packages of discounts of $5,700 on the, or $5,700 on the Ford, I believe, and $84 on the Chevy, but the Ford still.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is that Keystone, it's, what do they call it, a municipal discount?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, they'll give us a municipal discount, whereas some of these other dealers we've been talking to, they don't have a discount. There's such a demand, they aren't going to discount anything, so. But anyway, we're just looking to the board, just to let the board see if you have any issues with how we're going to propose moving forward with this. We'll get a firm estimate and bring it to the board, and then, if that's all right, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss it again and possibly take action at the next meeting. But just with the understanding that the actual purchase, we don't know when it's going to occur, but we want to go ahead and get an order in, so we're at least in line for when they become available. The other truck will be utilized. We plan, with the money we've put into it, we plan to keep it, and we'll kind of use it as a, is it going to be the water department?
Yeah, the water has been, you know, with the way their finances are, they've paid for part of this truck. And so we thought we'd recommend that we keep it just so they have a backup truck to run for $8,000. I think we can still get some money worth out of it,
Yeah.
instead of, you know, buying a brand new truck for that.
That's what the proposed trade was $8,000, so we think we can get that much out of it, using it in another department, just keep it, so.
What is the age of the current truck?
That is a 2009.
So it's 10 years old, 11 years old, well, 12 years old now, so. Okay. Next item on the fire extinguisher, I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, that we work cooperatively with the fire department. They do our inspections on fire extinguishers on all our vehicles and all the stuff throughout the building. So it's one of those cooperative things with the city. I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, so. Do you want me to keep working through it?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Okay.
might as well.
All right. Item number H, PFM. We had PFM do a cash flow update here a few years back. And I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that what I would propose is having PFM do another update, probably spring of '22, which would be third or fourth quarter of the next fiscal year, or July or August of '22, which would be the subsequent fiscal year. I just think that with everything going on and all the other things, it would be worth the effort to plan for one more future cash flow update. Does that make sense?
And we may have to do the water sooner.
Yeah, we may have to do the water sooner.
We have to move forward with some things.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up. We'll be getting a proposal from them, but it will be for future work unless something comes up in the water department. And then we had a holdover, pending holdover on the SCADA update at the water department. We had originally said we'd talk about it in February based on financials. And with the water department financials the way they are, doing the remediation work and the unknown factors with pending raw water improvements, because the raw water system improvements would also involve a SCADA system upgrade, a total upgrade, we're thinking that we may hold this now to see what comes about, whether we move forward on the whole package. It doesn't make much sense to us to go ahead and approve this now as an interim if we're going to do a total system upgrade in relation to a future project. So what we're proposing is tabling this again until such time that we make a decision, at least through July, until we make such a decision on how we want to move forward in the water department. So we just wanted to bring that up because we said we talked about it again this month. Okay, and then there's a call it, I'm not sure exactly what to call it, but we had a situation occur where we had a couple of employees that were on vacation that we had to call in on an emergency basis to repair a water main break. And I mean, it was cold, one of the coldest nights there was. And they came in at 6 o'clock on their vacation day, 6 o'clock in the evening, and worked through 3 o'clock the next day. And the way that our handbook reads right now for overtime, basically the work they did from 6 until midnight was time and a half, and the work they did the next day was regular time. So you had two guys came in off of vacation that got paid time and a half or regular time when they were on vacation for coming in to help fix emergency repairs. And my inkling in that kind of situation is that they should have been paid at least holiday pay, which is like double or double time and a half. Just from the fact that they're supposed to, vacation's supposed to be free time away from work, and we had to call them in for an emergency. But anyway, I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. That's a situation we're looking at. We're reviewing it. It's just one of those things, like anything else, when you put something down on paper, then you find an exception. Or something comes up that you didn't anticipate. And so I believe this is one of those kinds of situations. So I just wanted to let the board know that we are reviewing that internally, and if we can come up with any type of alternative language, that we'll probably be bringing that back to the board. So.
Did they get their vacation time back?
The two different guys handled it differently. One of the guys said, I'll use less vacation since I'm getting regular pay for these. The other guy got he went ahead and took his 8 hours of vacation and then got paid his regular pay for the hours that he worked.
That is all I have.
All right. So is there a CEO report?
Okay, CEO report, a couple of things. Some kudos. We had our all-hands meeting yesterday morning. Again, we're still on the, we do it Zoom for the people that have to stay up front and monitor the telephones or work from home. And then we do it in the truck bay so we can social distance. But we had our all-hands yesterday where I basically, again, just kind of review everything that's coming up on the board, see what kind of issues or concerns there are. But, kudos this month. Sean and Troy, a kudo for a customer that was appreciative of how they conducted themselves on a service call. Kudos to our water department. I mean, we fixed 3 main leaks in the worst, absolute worst of the weather. It's just, you know, Murphy's Law at its best. If it's gonna happen at a bad time, it is, and it does. You know, as I said, it's the whole water department, but especially the 2 employees that came in off of vacation to help us out in these situations. But we got it done. Also, kudos to the meter shop. They helped the customer deal with some frozen pipes, so that's always good when you hear that type of thing. And then kudo out to Ryan. He was responsive to a customer concern, very polite. On one of the main breaks that he got called out to in response to the situation. He was the on-call person, so just that kudo went out to Ryan. One other item that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, the telecom rates. We had originally talked about bringing it to this meeting, but we thought we had enough other issues to deal with. And what's going on the telephone or telecom rates is essentially we've got several different resolutions that are involved in this. The resolution 40-2020 parent 2 was the last time we adjusted cable TV. Resolution 67-2020 was the last adjustment on telephone. And then resolution 38 has to do with lifeline services. So there's some resolutions we have to look at, whether or not we need to adjust them, whether, you know, what kind of fees. But ballpark numbers, what we're looking at is approximately a $6 adjustment to cable. This is predicated on our ever-increasing programming costs. These are like what Fox and Sinclair and Disney and everybody else continues to increase their charges annually. And so that's basically a pass-through to customers. The bulk of that, although there is $1 or $2 added to get us through the cost and expense of the petition. And then we'll probably be looking at roughly a $2 internet and a $1 residential telephone, again, more or less to address the cost of the petition to help us get through that added expense, unbudgeted expense. And from a competitive standpoint, even with the increases, we're still very competitive in the marketplace. We're still the lowest cost telephone provider, both residential and commercial. Our internet rates are very competitive. Our closest competitor has a data cap. They have a special introductory 1-year price, but at the end of the 1 year, it goes up very close to what our current rates are, and plus they have data caps on their internet service. So, yeah, you pay less up front, but if you use a lot of data, like most people are starting to, then you end up paying for all that extra data as well. But otherwise, from a standpoint of competitive, we're still very competitive, even with our proposed increases. But we hope to have all this ready and prepared for the board then at the next meeting on the telecom rates. Another little informational piece, we got through our gas safety standards review by the IUB. We had a few things, mostly clerical type of comments that we have to do. We have to put a few, bollards to protect some meter sets and other things uptown in the business district. But overall, we got a very good review. And the guy they sent out there this year, he dug into every corner, dotted every I, crossed every T. So it was a very thorough, very extensive review this time, and we came through it in good shape. The other item, we're progressing on our C-band transitioning. We talked about that earlier. The C-band's being redistributed for the 5G wireless, and so we're continuing. I think Jim reported we're roughly 10% as far as satellite receivers and such that we've already received and already transitioned over to the C-band. The funding, that $200,000 plus or minus funding, that is probably, with the latest information we have, we thought we might see it in the second calendar quarter this year, but it looks now like it may be the third calendar quarter. So probably the first quarter of our next fiscal year before we see it, but that'll be a roughly $200,000 net to the telecom utility. And then we did receive our dividend on our premium with the agency on it's the IMU Safety Group 2020 dividend to members. And so that check was received, we get part of it, and the city gets part of it. So that's all I have. Any questions of me? Any of the directors want to add anything? That's all we have for today.
Anyone from the public?
Anyone from the public have any comments or questions?
Then we're adjourned.
Okay, thank you.